Today I'm taking a look at the new game Potions of Azerland. In this game you are brewing potions. All these visitors have come to this town for this big summer festival and you are in charge of brewing potions. You can give those potions to the visitors or you can drink them yourself for some special powers as well. I want to thank Lucky Duck Games for providing a review copy of this one. Let's go ahead and take a look at how you play this game solo. Then I'll come back and share with you some of my thoughts for Potions of Azerland. Here we have Potions of Azerland set up and ready to go. In this game, you're trying to make these potions over here and then either drink them yourself or fulfill these visitors' requests that have come to town. You can give them the potions, and then if you do, you will get prestige, which are points. At the end of the game in the solo mode, you want to have over 65 prestige. If you're able to do that, you win the game. So in this game, there are 4 different phases that you are going to go through. The first one is the refresh phase, which we won't be doing until the end of this round because we've got everything set up for the first round. The second phase, and one of the more interesting things of the game, is this priority tile holder. So you have tiles. They are numbered from 1 through 5 here, and you're going to pick these tiles out and slot them into these slots for these various actions. I'll go over what the actions do here in just a second, but you might pick some different things here. And you might say, oh, I really want to forage, so I'm going to put that as my top priority. 1 is the most important thing to you. 5 is not as important. I think fulfilling at this point, maybe not as important at this particular point. You know, maybe we'll go market will be 4. Maybe studying will be like 3. And then brewing a potion will be 2. If you ever have an action that you don't want to take in that particular round, you can just flip this over and get coins for that particular action instead. If you're like, I don't need to do that action this round, I'm just going to get coins instead. You can do that. But I want to show you how all the different actions work. So once you've got that, you've got your priority for all of these actions. So you're going to do every single action. It's just how many benefits are you going to get for that particular action. If you have the highest priority in a 2-player game or a solo game, which we're playing here, you'll get to do that action basically 4 times. If you have secondary priority, then you'll get to do that action 2 times. And that's indicated on this board right here. So we've picked these out. Normally you would sit this up here, but I don't have a lot of table space, so we're just going to put it over here for now. Again, we're playing solo, so it's fine that it's upright. If it was a multiplayer game, you would place it face down and then reveal what everybody's priorities were. So in the solo mode for this game, you have this little card right here, and there are multiple difficulty levels. This is easy. There's also medium and hard, and a couple of different cards for each difficulty. This is the solo mode's priorities for that particular round. So what you will do after you've picked out your priorities, you will move this down and then see what the solo mode's priorities are. So you can see in this first round, the first action is forage. We both have a priority of 1. What do we do? Well, that is where these cauldrons come into play. And so if you ever decide to tie on a priority, then you will switch the cauldrons. So right now the solo mode has first priority. It has the 1 cauldron. So it will get to do 4 actions in that particular spot for foraging. Then I will go ahead and flip this. Now I have top priority, and I'll take my 2 actions for foraging. Foraging is gathering resources. You're going to roll 2 of these dice and then see what they land on and gather those particular resources. So I'll just put those right over here on your player board. That's foraging. Now, the interesting thing in this game is you have these apprentices. And what you can do with these apprentices, if you want, is spin them, and that will give you an additional action at that spot. You can do that for foraging, studying, and brewing. So for foraging, if you wanted to, you could spin that and get an extra die and roll it and get that resource. That's foraging. Next is studying. Studying is moving up on this track right down here. And when you study, you're able to basically improve your potions throughout the course of the game and make them better, get more points for doing things, and also give yourself some different abilities that you can use throughout the course of the game. You can see here for the solo mode, its priority is just to take 2 coins. So it doesn't matter there. We have the 3rd priority, so we're going to get to do this 4 times. So when you study, maybe you would move these 2 up. Maybe you move both of those up too. Now you've landed on this space, which allows you to forage once again. So then you could roll 2 more dice for each of those tokens that you have on there and get a mushroom and a crystal here and put them onto your board. that is studying. Next is the market action of the game. That takes place right over here. That's where you're able to spend coins to get these particular cards, basically switching coins for resources. The solo mode here has a priority of 5, so we're going to go before the solo mode here. So we could buy 4 cards from this particular space. If we wanted to, we could buy 1 card. This does not factor in with the action elements, if you will, or the action benefits. This is allowing you to buy however many cards are basically out there. So I have 1 coin. Maybe I would take that 1 coin, spend it, and then get 1 resource here. Also, at the market, you can exchange resources. When you are at the market, you are able to exchange ingredients at a 2-to-1 ratio, and they don't have to match. So if you need a particular ingredient for a potion, you can swap that out right there. That's the market. Next, we have the brew phase. Brewing is where we are making our potions. You can see the solo mode has a priority of 4. I have a priority of 2, so I can make up to 4 potions here. Now, the potions and their ingredients are right here on your player board. So you're going to look at what guests you have out here that you're trying to fulfill in the next phase and probably make a potion that is good for those guests. You can see we have a lot of blue guests out here, and then this one can take a potion of any type. So I think I'm going to make a intelligence potion. So what you would do is you just spin these resources, these ingredients, put them right there, grab a blue potion, and there you go. That's the brew phase. You can do that up to 4 times or 2 times if you're the second in the priority. And then you finally have the fulfill phase. And so here the solo mode has a priority of 3. It wants these 2 guests. Well, unfortunately, those 2 guests are not out here. So what will it do? It will take the 2 that are closest in number to that. That's a little hard to see there, but you can see there it's got a 2 and an 11 right there. So it will go ahead and take this 12 and this 3. So those are off the board. We are not able to use those and fulfill those guests. You'll just sit those right over here. So now I have my turn to fulfill. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and spin this potion and get this guest right here. They're going to score me 3 points, this visitor, and so I would move up on the prestige track here. And then some of these allow you to take an instant action. This one is going to let you put one of these 3 discs right here on one of these particular spots. So maybe you go ahead and you decide, I'm going to use proficiency here. I have this ability for the rest of the game as well. So I now have that for the rest of the game. So then you could fulfill another guest if you wanted to. Maybe I'll go ahead and fulfill this guest as well. And that would be 3 more points. So you would move along this track. Now, all of these guests have different abilities that they are able to use throughout the course of the game. This guest, if you did no work around town, you gain 1 prestige. So if you decide I don't want to do anything this round, you can get 1 prestige for that particular guest. Now, that is the end of the round. So we've done all of the steps, and now we would refresh. So basically, what happens is all of these market cards go away, and you put 4 new ones out there. And so you do that like that. These visitors that are up here at the top are basically coming into town the next round. So now we would move those visitors down here and then take 2 cards from over there and then put 2 more visitors up here, and they'll be coming into town in the next round. You'll flip this tile over. Everybody will get a bonus. This is an apprentice token right here. And so you have that as well. And that is basically the refresh action. That's kind of all you do for the refresh action. Then you're ready for the next round of the game. I want to show you one more thing, and that is drinking potions, which we didn't do. If you want to, you can have a potion and you can drink that potion instead of using it to fulfill a visitor. What you get for that potion is determined by where these cubes are. So if your cube is right here and you drink this potion, you would get 2 apprentice tokens. If this cube is right here, you could get 2 apprentice tokens, or you could have everybody that is playing give you 1 coin. If you're playing against a solo mode, you just get a coin. If you put this up here, you could do any of these 3 actions. This token lets you reserve a particular guest. You can say, that is mine. I am taking that guest right there. And how do you get those tokens and those potions upgraded? Well, you move along this track right here by studying. When you get to the eye with that particular token, you get to move that one up on that track. When you get to the E, you get to move it up to the E. Also, when you fulfill visitors of that color with that particular potion, you get extra prestige. This is here, you would get 1 extra prestige for every visitor that had a red potion that you were fulfilling. So maybe you fulfill that one, you'd get 6 points, but you'd get 1 more because you have that upgraded there. So that is what you do when you drink a potion in the game. Other than that, you just go through 6 rounds, and then again, for the solo mode, if you have over 65 points, you win. If you don't, you lose. The only other thing the solo mode does is sometimes it will drink potions throughout the course of the game. Usually those do not affect you at all, but sometimes they will. On this particular card, none of them do, but if you had like this one, you would have to give a coin basically back to the supply. You can see here that this card is just all 6 rounds, what the solo mode is doing every single round, taking the guess. This icon right here is basically which cards it would take. So the ones with the black circle, those are the cards it would take from the market if it was able to take the market action before you took the market action. And there you go. That is Potions of Azerland. Let me go back and share with you some of my thoughts and tell you what I think about this game. So you've seen how Potions of Azerland plays. Now I'll share with you some of my thoughts. My first like for this game, and what I think is the most interesting thing going on in this game, is the action selection. You know, you have those 5 different actions that you can do all of them in every round if you want to, but what priority are you going to do those actions with? And that's really where the intriguing part of this game comes in. Some rounds you really want to do something, so you set that as your 1 or your 2 priority. Other rounds you're like, don't really care if I do this round, so maybe I'll put it as a 4 or a 5, or maybe I'll just get a coin or 2 coins for not even doing that particular action. And so deciding what priorities you're going to have for which actions is really the core of this game. I think it works well with the solo mode. I'll talk about the solo mode more in depth a little bit later on in this review, but I think from a solo perspective, how the solo mode is also picking a priority, and whoever has higher priority gets to do that action 4 times, and whoever has lower priority only gets to do it twice. That becomes a big impact. You know, if you're foraging, 4 ingredients is a lot more than 2 ingredients. If you're trying to make a certain number of potions, you know, 4 is a lot more than 2. It's obviously double. So that is the really intriguing factor in this game, is that whole action selection mechanism. So with those actions, it feels like the way you do them is a very natural progression. You know, you're starting with that, you know, foraging action going all the way up to fulfilling. It seems like a very natural order for how you would do things, you know, not if you were doing this in real life, but for how you're doing things throughout the course of the game. I thought that made a lot of thematic sense. It was very easy to understand rules-wise in terms of what action I was doing at which particular time. So I really liked how they structured that and how that kind of, you know, just goes throughout the course of the game. I also think 6 rounds is a good amount of time for this game. When you sit down to play this, 6 rounds seems like it's going to take a while, but with the solo game in particular, I was able to play this in about 40 minutes or so. That feels like a really good length for this game, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It feels like you're still able to get a lot done and get enough done, but the game doesn't feel like it's too long. It also doesn't feel like it's too short either. I feel like 6 rounds is a really good amount, because those first couple rounds, you're not going to be able to do a ton. You can fulfill some of those 1 potion visitors. You can maybe make a couple of potions, but once you start getting going and you have more ingredients and you have more coins and more apprentices and things like that, you can really fire off some pretty cool combos once you get into those later rounds. And I felt like 6 rounds was a good amount for this game. I also want to mention I really enjoyed the art for this one. It's done by Andrew Bosley, very prolific artist who has done art for a lot of different board games, and his style, I think, fits this game really well. You know, this is kind of a magical, whimsical type game, and I think his artwork really goes along well with that. All the art on the cards looks really nice. The board looks really nice as well, so shout out to Andrew Bosley for the art on this one. And the board is really set up well too. Everything that you are playing with, other than your player board, fits on the board. So everything has a slot to go in, and I think that works really well. It does require a decent amount of space on a table, but once you get that board out there, you don't really need a ton of additional space because everything's going to fit on that board. Also, I think you'll enjoy this game if you're somebody who likes a contract fulfillment game. You know, you have these various visitors that are in town. Anybody can fulfill any particular visitor that they want as long as they get to them first. And so you start out with those very easy visitors that only require 1 potion, and then you get up to 2 or 3 potion visitors that are usually going to give you more stuff, more prestige, or cooler abilities. And I also like that all the visitors have different abilities on them, and they are all pretty unique. Some are going to give you an instantaneous, one-time bonus. Some are going to score at the end of the game for things that you have collected or visitors that you have fulfilled throughout the course of the game. Some are going to let you take a particular action. So those are really well done, and there's a lot of variety there with the different visitors that will come out throughout the course of the game. I also enjoy how you always know which 2 visitors, at least in the solo game, are going to be coming in the next round. I feel like that's a really good idea that you can see at the top of the board, okay, these visitors, I can't fulfill them yet. They're not going to come into town until the next round. But if I want to work towards one of those visitors, if I have maybe 1 potion that visitor requires, and I want to work on getting the second one, so the next round I can fulfill them, I think that's really smart. I think if it was just a blind draw and you didn't know which visitors were coming out which round, that would be kind of annoying to try and have to plan for that. But I like the fact that you can plan at least a round in advance and see which visitors are headed your way in the next round. I also think the study aspect is interesting in this game in terms of improving your potions and also getting more prestige when you fulfill visitors with that specific potion color. I think that's a very interesting way to score additional points in this game, and some of those abilities are pretty cool once you get them and have them activated and can work well. Even in the solo mode, I felt like those abilities were pretty well done. There are a few that I think would work better in multiplayer than the solo version of the game, but there's still a lot in the solo mode that you can take advantage of and use to make yourself better or improve, the number of ingredients you have or your potion levels or things like that. Let's go ahead and talk about the solo mode a little bit for this game, because this is an interesting solo mode. When I first saw it, I really wasn't sure what to think, but as I played it, I enjoyed it. So it's very, very simple. As I showed in the overview, you just have one of those cards, and then you are sliding another card down throughout the course of the game to see what priorities the solo mode is going to take on particular actions. The designer of this game on BGG said what he did is actually just copied down moves that real players took during a game and then used those to create the solo mode of the game, which I think is perfectly fine, because the main thing you're competing against the solo mode for is that priority. You're trying to, if you want to have the highest priority to go somewhere, you have to think about that with what the solo mode is possibly going to do. Also, the solo mode doesn't have to have any, additional setup. It's just those 2 cards. It doesn't have a player board. It doesn't have a score tracker, anything like that. So really all it is doing is determining priority, and then also sometimes taking cards from the market. When I first played, I thought, I don't really understand this solo mode. Like, what am I competing against? But then as I played more, I was able to see how it was coming into factor, especially with the priority, which is the most important thing in this game, because the solo mode, especially if you play it on harder difficulties, will take visitors from you in that fulfill action if it has a higher priority than you, especially maybe visitors that you wanted to fulfill. So you have to constantly think about that. I would say the other actions, it's not, as important if you get the 4 actions versus the 2, but you can always spend those apprentices to get additional actions, and you get to do every action, every round. And sometimes the solo mode will just forgo certain actions. So that's interesting too, because sometimes you'll slide that card down and then the solo mode will just be taking coins for a particular action in that round, which it's not collecting. It's just saying, hey, I'm not taking this action this round. So that's all my likes with the game. So let's go ahead and switch to dislikes here just really quickly. Overall, I did enjoy Potions of Azerland. There were a few things that stood out to me though in terms of dislikes. One is the drinking of the potions. I feel like that wasn't a big factor in the solo game and would be more important in the multiplayer game. Because the solo game, you're trying to score the most amount of points that you can. You're trying to get over 65 points. So every time I thought about drinking a potion, I would say, why would I drink this to get a couple of ingredients, to move up on the study track, etc., when I need that potion to fulfill visitors, because that's how I get points, and I need to get over a certain number of points to be able to win the game. And 65 points is a very high threshold to try and meet in this game. So I feel like the drinking of the potions option in this game, I just didn't really pursue that a ton, because I always felt like it was better to use a potion to fulfill a visitor than to drink that and give myself maybe a one-time ability or something that would improve myself for that particular round, but wouldn't be used to be scoring me points. Also, with the solo mode, I feel like the way that it is set up, it is a little random at times in terms of what it is prioritizing. You know, sometimes it will really go hard after fulfilling guests. Sometimes it won't fulfill guests at all. Other times it will, you know, take priority in foraging. Sometimes it won't. It just feels like it's not really reacting to what you're doing because it's just a card on, you know, a piece of paper that has set actions on it. So it's not like other solo modes where you flip a card over, you check and see, you know, maybe a priority type thing or something like that to figure out which action it's going to take. This is just like, no, it's foraging and its priority is a 3 for this round for foraging. So did you beat it? Yes or no? But it just feels kind of, you know, wishy-washy, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, in terms of what actions it's going to take which particular round and how it's prioritizing those, because it's just based off of a real player, which I think is good, but that based off of a real player and just marking down those actions was probably done around a table with other players, and that player was reacting to what other players were doing. So the solo mode is not really reacting to what you are doing in the game. So the solo mode is just saying, these are my priorities. This is the, you know, level that I've put them at for this particular round. Now just compare with yours and we'll see who goes first and who goes second. So I think the solo mode could have been beefed up just a little bit, but I do like that this game does include solo, and I think for how it plays very easily and it plays very smooth in terms of operation of the solo mode. But I just feel like the solo mode's priority on actions doesn't really correspond to what you are doing as the player. And my final dislike with this one is I felt like the study track. I was never able to get high enough on that track to really upgrade my potions to an expert level. I just felt like I would have really had to prioritize that action, and I didn't really see the benefit there in getting my potions up to that level. While they would have been better if I was drinking those potions or, you know, using the actions that are associated with them when you drink them, I feel like that could have factored in more, but because I was so worried about just getting as many points as possible, I felt like upgrading on that study track wasn't really an essential action when you are playing solo. Now, if you're playing multiplayer, that might come into play more. You might be using that more and trying to compete with people more in terms of scoring points. And if not everybody is deciding to go after points and is just deciding to, you know, take different strategies, that might come into play. But for the solo mode, I just felt like that study track wasn't really that essential. You know, one game I really tried to go hard at it. Another game I didn't really upgrade it at all. And I got similar scores in both games. So it felt like it wasn't really that beneficial in the solo mode to kind of pursue that strategy. But overall, those are all of my dislikes with Potions of Azerland. I think this is an enjoyable game. I think the action selection is quite interesting in this game. The priority of the actions, what are you going to do? When are you going to prioritize certain actions versus others? I think if you like contract fulfillment, you will enjoy this game as well. If you like some combos, there are times in this game when you are able to fire off some pretty cool combos in this one. And overall, I did have a really enjoyable time playing this game, and I think the solo mode, while it could be improved upon a little bit, did work okay for this game. So I'm going to give Potions of Azerland a 7.5 out of 10. I liked that it was a quick playing game. I felt like it was a really nice experience for the amount of time that it took. The art and the world I think is really cool for this one, and making those potions was fun, and the game felt very thematic as well in terms of the actions that you were doing and what you were doing throughout the course of the game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I've got lots of other videos on my channel, solo mode reviews, solo list, a couple of playthroughs, lots of different things. Also be sure to follow on Instagram and TikTok. The links are in the bio if you want to check those out. Until next time, I'm Jared. You've been checking out Specifically Solo.